Hey, YouTubers, it's Angela Logan bringing you everyday shenanigans. And tonight is my bang 'em up video. I am bringing them in, and trying to get them out there to you to give you something to focus on, ponder on for the week. It's an early start, but I'm bringing them back-to-back videos because I find that I do best when I get that spurt of energy, and I just bring them to you back-to-back. Mind you, something may pop off in the news world before the week is out, but that's okay. I'll bring you something else just to keep you all in tune. Okay, right now, I'm doing this video after Sunday because I kind of feel weird doing, true crime and horrible type videos on a Sunday because I feel like really it is a day of rest, and if I was to do a video, I really shouldn't be doing videos of mayhem and madness because, like I said, it just seems like a bad omen to even go there on a Sunday. So it's now into early Tuesday morning, so I'm bringing you a video of true crime, and it is another story that I got from the Netflix network. It is a story that is running on Netflix at this time. It was filmed a couple years ago. It is called The Making of a Murderer. I had heard about it years ago or whatever, never watched it. Finally got to finish it last week. I was enthralled, I was mesmerized, I was baffled. All of the crazy words you can come up with, that was me. The story is about Mr. Stephen Avery, deriving out of Wisconsin. He and his nephew, Brendan Dassey, were accused of murdering a young lady that worked for Auto Trader magazine. She was the photographer for this auto book, and she was found dead. She went missing, and let me take that back. Not found dead. Let's just say remains were discovered linked to her. I don't want to give you a lot of information from this documentary because it is best that you watch it yourself, and that's why I'm making the video. I am a true crime fan. I also am an advocate for young people, the elderly, and the dead. Okay? Living and deceased. I'm a right fighter for any injustice done to the human, especially with violence, violent crime. And this is one story that mesmerized me from the moment I was able to go in and watch it. It has 20 episodes, so you have to dedicate the time to watch it because, each episode is, an hour plus long. So, you have to have that kind of time to get into it, and you need to be lucid and woke to watch it because it's one of those type of situations. If you go in late hour trying to watch it, doze off, you're all thrown off, you got to go back in. But just letting you know, it's 20 episodes long. It is a riveting story of this man, Stephen Avery, who was accused a second time of a violent crime. Mind you, first crime he was accused of that they aired was about mowing down his cousin on a dirt road. Okay. Second incident, he was accused of raping a woman on a beach. She identified him as the male who assaulted her. He did 18 years for that crime. He was released when DNA exonerated him because, if I'm not mistaken, an Innocent Project got involved or something, and got him off for the first crime, which he did 18 years. A gentleman who was also named as a suspect in that crime was the actual guy who they linked the DNA to 18 or so years later. So keep that in mind. 18 years he did in prison. DNA is introduced to test the DNA from that crime, and it is noted that he was not the gentleman who raped the lady, although she claimed he was that guy. Now, you put that on paper. So, 18 years in prison, he's out, living as a free man to roam, do as he sees fit, to only be indicted again for kidnapping and murder of another young lady 2 years later. So, 18 years out of prison. 2 years later, from being freed, he is now, or then at that time, rearrested alongside his nephew for participation in the kidnap murder of a young lady. Miss Teresa Halbach. So you have to decide when you watch this series, did Stephen Avery and Brendan Dassey, his teenage nephew, commit this heinous crime against this young lady? And the evidence is just as spellbinding as anything I've seen, yes. I mean, to date, because they have blood evidence, and you have to decide if that evidence is valid, if it is, was it planted? Because that is the theory going into the documentary. He feels that it was planted against him. So you have to decide if it was or was not. And I'm telling you, it is a riveting tale. The story of Mr. Stephen Avery and his nephew, Brendan Dassey. And Brendan comes across, he was a teenager at the time, a very shy child. He was a slow learner. He had a very low IQ of, I think, under 70. He seemed as if he did not commit the crime. This is my opinion. He did not seem facetious in nature. He did not seem like he was crafty enough to lie and make up a version or story that he, went along with this guy. He just didn't come across as that type of kid to me that would have committed this crime. Now, naturally, it doesn't really matter what your IQ is to be coerced into doing something. Who's to say that the uncle didn't coerce him? Maybe he did. He's a slow learner. He obviously has some type of mental disabilities that he would be easy to, coerce if he had raped this young lady, kidnapped her, whatever. Maybe he did talk him into going along. I don't know because I wasn't there. But I can say this much. There are times while watching this documentary that I felt like evidence could have been planted. I weighed everything from everything that they gave me to go on. I waited. The evidence, the time frame, who was involved, neighbors, other relatives, other suspects, locations of everything they pinpointed as far as phone logs, pinging of the towers. I weighed all of that. And at some point near the end, I felt like in my sane mind could I believe that he did not do it, because the evidence looks like he did it. Because what I had to say to myself is, there are times when I felt like the police was involved, or it could have been a relative involved that set him up. What are the odds of them doing it and getting away with it and not being seen perpetrating the setup? Because you see, I don't want to give away what all was involved as far as the evidence without, that'd be a spoiler for you. But in order to accuse someone of setting you up for a crime, you have to weigh the fact that how did they do it without you being around, the time frame of them doing it. You have to weigh all of that, because you're talking about going to your property doing something, going into your home doing something. You will see this when you watch the documentary. It is called The Making of a Murderer. It is the life of Stephen Avery and his nephew, Brendan Dassey, both who are currently still in prison. So I don't want to give you much more than that. I don't even want to give you all the things that transpired with their cases and appeals and all that. I'd rather let you watch that, because then I would give it away. But it is a sad, sad tale for this lady. And a lot of things have been said, as far as this documentary on Netflix getting all this hype about the crime, that it has taken away from the death of the young lady, Miss Halbach, and that naturally it has weighed her family down, having to go to court for different, appeals and different things. And so you let me know what you think, because everybody has a side, and that's the thing about a crime. The suspect has a side, the victim has a side, and naturally somebody's going to tell it from each side. And I felt like this documentary, I know, was made because no one could actually believe, and this is my opinion, that a man or woman could do 18 years in prison to only come out and be reaccused of a violent crime 2 years later. And I know this is why this group of people went out seeking to make this documentary. Because, yes, documentaries are made about true crime every day. But you have to admit, it is baffling to hear that a person went in, did 18 years, exonerated through DNA from somebody else. That person then ends up being put into prison for the crime. And then the person who just got out, they're only free 2 years to be re-arrested for another violent crime. Your mind is thinking, there's no way he could have done it. Why in the world would he do that when he just got out? And I think that's why they made the documentary. It's no disrespect to the dead lady or her family. It is just common sense. You're trying to figure out why and how did this transpire? Is there truth to it? Did he and this nephew do this to this lady? Because it is a grand story. It is a wild story. It's got all type of hypotheses and scenarios and what ifs and who did it and why. And I'm telling you, honey, it will leave you baffled and confounded. And some people will probably already have opinion formed from episode 1. But that's why I watch everything through the end. I do updates. I Google information about a story. I don't just stop at the end of a series. I go Google and get other scenarios and what ifs and other people's versions, because that's the only way you can grasp a hold of what actually transpired, is to get other people's opinions and stories about that situation. But tune in to Netflix. I mean, seriously, it is a baffling tale of true crime. And you have to decide, did Stephen Avery and Brendan Dassey kill Miss Halbach? It's up to you to decide, but let me know what you think. Drop your comments below, and I'll talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.